There is a shipping service available to us as eBayers that many eBayers don't even use and don't understand, and I think you should. There are good advantages to knowing about this. As sellers, we get some advantages for using this particular shipping service. The primary one is it often costs less money to ship to our buyers. I'm going to show you how to use it. I'm going to show you why you should use it once in a while. And then I'm going to show you a couple of big reasons why you'd better be careful whenever you use something other than the postal service for your eBay packages. Know that just because you offer one or two or three or four shipping services on a listing doesn't mean you have to use one of those four shipping services. And just because your buyer selects a specific service doesn't mean you have to use that specific mail class. If your buyer selects Ground Advantage, you have the option to ship using a different service. You have the option to ship priority mail or UPS or FedEx or whatever. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, if it saves you money, let's say you did not estimate your package correctly and it was oversized and you didn't think it would be oversized whenever you entered the dimensions when you created the listing. Well, it's going to cost you a lot more money to ship that box to your buyer who didn't pay oversized rate. And you can't go after the buyer for that. It's not their problem, it's your problem. You didn't estimate the size of the box correctly. Or the poundage. If it's way over poundage, then you're going to be charged a lot more for a label than your buyer paid. You have the option to use a different mail service generally. Now, the first caveat is you really can't select a service that is a lot slower than the one that your buyer picked. Let's say that your buyer picked priority mail for a book. You can't ship it media mail and save a bunch of money. You can ship media mail and save a bunch of money, but your buyer's not going to be happy because your buyer paid for expedited service with priority mail, usually 2 or 3 day service in America. And if you ship by media mail to save yourself money, that book may take 7-10 days to arrive. You can't slow down a buyer's package by picking a better for you mail service that is much slower for your buyer. Now, let's say that your buyer selected Ground Advantage and you choose priority mail. That's okay because priority mail is generally a faster shipping method. Now, why would you do that? Maybe you picked priority mail flat rate, which happened to be cheaper than a very heavy Ground Advantage package. There are reasons why you might want to upgrade to priority mail once in a while. Generally, though, you don't. Generally, you want to stick with Ground Advantage or one of the other carriers. When UPS and FedEx come into the picture, you have a potential big problem that I'm going to show you how to avoid. Even though your buyer didn't select FedEx, it's okay that you do as long as it doesn't slow it down too much. Now, some buyers don't like FedEx. Some buyers don't like UPS. All buyers and all sellers don't like the post office. That's the government. But it's a necessary evil. Although I don't know why it's a necessary evil. I don't know why they have a monopoly on first-class mail. They really shouldn't. But anyway, a buyer might be out in the middle of nowhere in the country, a very rural area, and they've had problems with FedEx or UPS deliveries before, and they never want a package by FedEx or UPS. Now, if you can save a few dollars, the buyer selected Ground Advantage for a package that turns out to be oversized, and you can ship it by UPS or FedEx cheaper, and it gets there about the same time period. Even though it's oversized or heavier, it's still cheaper for you to ship. That's okay, but you do risk once in a while a buyer will not like one of those other services and they didn't choose it and they're going to be angry if you ship it by that method. I think that's rare these days where buyers don't like those other carriers, but sometimes they don't for whatever reason. They've had a bad experience. They don't want their packages shipped by that method. FedEx was known a long time for not treating packages as well as UPS. And heaven forbid, there was even rumors that they didn't treat packages as well as the post office of all people. That seems to be greatly improved, if not completely fixed. Pretty much all three carriers, UPS, FedEx, and the post office, believe it or not, they all are pretty good about getting packages to the recipient without too much damage at all. Obviously, you need to wrap as if it's going to go through a nuclear blast, but other than that, these carriers are pretty good these days at getting things to where they need to be in good shape, generally. So given all of that, your buyer chooses Ground Advantage. You realize it's going to cost you a lot of money to ship at Ground Advantage that the buyer didn't pay for because you didn't estimate the weight properly. You go to UPS Ground. It's a little bit faster, maybe a day slower, but generally the same time period. Go ahead and ship it. But again, you risk the buyer not liking UPS, and it could be a problem. But I'm about to show you a really neat carrier class I think you should always consider looking at anytime you've got one of these situations where you underestimated the package size or the weight, and that is FedEx Ground Economy. The nice thing about FedEx Ground Economy is you can ship larger packages and heavier packages than you can with Ground Advantage without getting much of an oversized charge. And ultimately, a lot of these packages that are problems for us now because we underestimated size or weight, and you should never do that, and you'll get better over time, but once in a while it happens. FedEx Ground Advantage is often cheaper and arrives about the same time period as Ground Advantage does. Now, with FedEx Ground Advantage, they generally will estimate the same arrival date. There's always a range. If it's January 2nd and you mail a package Ground Advantage, eBay will estimate it'll take 3 to 7 days depending on where your buyer is located. FedEx Ground Economy, it might say it'll take 3 to 8 days. However, FedEx Ground Economy generally underestimates its speed. It plays on the safe side, and generally FedEx Ground Economy will arrive about the same time frame as Ground Advantage. There's no guarantee. Don't shoot me, I'm only the messenger. But in general, you should feel pretty safe about shipping FedEx Ground Economy that the buyer paid for Postal Ground Advantage, the one that we usually select these days. There's another big advantage and a disadvantage with FedEx Ground Economy, and that is not only can you save money, but the last mile, it's actually sometimes more than that, but it's called the last mile effect. FedEx will hand off the package to the local post office of your buyer to deliver to the buyer. So FedEx gets it from you, all those states across, to your buyer, and gets it to your buyer's town and gets it to your buyer's post office, but then the buyer's post office will deliver the rest of the way. So any buyer that doesn't like to receive packages from FedEx, they're out in the country and for whatever reason they don't like that, their postal carrier will be the one that delivers all FedEx Ground Economy. So you don't have that problem, people not liking getting packages by FedEx, because their mailman's going to deliver that package. Now, here's the big problem that you're going to face if you're not careful. Here is a FedEx Ground Economy label, and it's got the normal FedEx tracking ID and all of that, and the from and to and all that. It looks like a FedEx label. All is well, except there is a USPS, a postal tracking barcode at the bottom of this label. That can be dangerous. If you forget this goes to FedEx and not to the post office, and you take all your boxes to the post office and either let them scan them individually or you put them up on the counter, which I don't suggest, and hope they scan sometime later in time for eBay to know that you mailed on time, which often they don't, by the way. They don't study these labels. This is the government we're talking about. They grab a box and scan it. They grab a box and scan it. And whenever they grab your box, your FedEx Ground Economy box, and scan it, it will scan in their system, and their scanner will read this last mile tracking number for this box, and it just goes down the line and then gets lost in the mail system because they can't do anything with this. It has to be taken by the post office across multi-states. Does your post office contact you, give you a nice phone call real fast and say, oops, you left the wrong box? No, they don't. Often you never hear about it ever. They'll never find it. Sometimes they will. They often never do. They now have signs up at a lot of post offices that say, don't leave FedEx or UPS packages because we probably won't give them back to you. They have no incentive to locate you. They're not a business. They don't have to please you. Again, this package will scan at the post office because they're just going to run it under the scanner, and that bottom barcode will scan, but it will be meaningless. It doesn't give them an error. It should. It doesn't. They just hear the beep and they throw it real hard into the bin. Then they grab your next package, beep, throw it in. Therefore, you have to be proactive. Here is what we have next to our postal scales where we weigh every package that goes out. Our scales are over there to the right, and we have a great big giant marker right next to those scales. And anytime a package is UPS or FedEx Ground Economy, as we're talking about here, the moment we weigh the package and print the label, we'll put the label on the package right here and grab that big fat marker, the big Sharpie Magnum. I strongly suggest you get 2 or 3 of these, and we write, as you can see here, FedEx or UPS if it's a UPS label. It's more important really for FedEx. We write FedEx, so you don't put that box along with all your postal packages, or if you do, you're far more likely to see that it's a problem. Or whenever you take your packages to the counter and have them scanned individually, as you need to do, even though that's a big hassle, or when your postal carrier picks up your boxes and scans everything, you and he or she will usually see this big red FedEx and you go, uh-oh, wait, don't take that. Or they'll see it and they'll say, I can't take this. They're far more likely to see that. It's one extra little safety measure so you can more easily distinguish a FedEx or UPS package from all of the postal. And we're assuming that most packages that you ship every day on eBay, all of your sales, most of them go to the post office. Most of them are Ground Advantage because that's the vast majority, at least here in the States. If you're not in the United States, you're going to have similar issues with your postal system versus the private carriers like FedEx, UPS, and DHL. If you're international, DHL is still really popular. You need to be marking DHL or UPS, or the moment you slap that label on and before you put it anywhere else, you grab your big fat Sharpie red Magnum marker and you write FedEx or UPS or DHL right next to that label where anybody who picks up that package, especially you, will see this doesn't go with all the others. Okay, did you get all that? Raise your hand if you didn't get it all. To sum up, whenever you ship something and you get your ship your order page, just because your buyer chose one service doesn't necessarily mean you have to use that service, but you better use a service that is relatively the same shipping speed. What you can do is you can go down and instead of Ground Advantage, you can choose FedEx Ground Economy, which is right here, generally the second or third item on the list of all. See, you didn't offer all of these shipping options on your item you sold on eBay, but they're all available to you as the shipper. Generally choose what the buyer selected, but if there's a problem, like it's ultra expensive, and you can choose a cheaper service that's basically the same speed, it's fine. Again, if you choose UPS or FedEx, you do risk your buyer not being happy because they don't like either of those two services. But again, with FedEx Ground Economy, which in this case is cheaper than the one that my buyer selected, FedEx Ground Economy will be delivered by their post office. And we're saving $1.10 here. Now, this is the shipping speed. FedEx says we might take 3 days longer than Ground Advantage. Well, it's a little misleading because there's a New Year's Eve holiday inside this. And as I said before, FedEx Ground Economy in general overestimates their last shipping date. In general, not always, you can't count on it, but in general, this will probably be about the same speed as USPS Ground Advantage. Maybe a day longer, but it's not going to be significant enough where you really need to worry about that, in my not so humble opinion. So instead of Ground Advantage, you can choose. Now look what happens the moment I click FedEx Ground Advantage. Whoa, to avoid having your package confiscated by the post office, please ensure your package is dropped off at a FedEx location. I just went through all of that. eBay is saying, you gotta be careful. The post office isn't going to be your friend here. They're never your friend, but they're really not your friend if you drop off a FedEx package that will be scanned into their system and give them a false positive that it's a USPS parcel. You need to avoid this, and I think the only way to do it is to be proactive at the beginning and just assume you're going to mess up. Just have that big, fat, red Magnum marker, Sharpie marker, right by your scales. Wherever you put a label on a package, have that marker right there. And don't move that package until you've written FedEx, UPS, if it's one of those versus the postal system. I hope this helps you see an advantage to saving some money through using FedEx Grounded Economy. I hope you understand the danger of not using that Magnum Sharpie. You and or your postal carrier is going to miss this package that needs to be dropped off at FedEx. Now, another thing about FedEx is it can be dropped off at several other places, like Walgreens. There's a drugstore on every corner, right? I mean, the medical industry is just giant. They're just making a fortune off you. And you can drop off a FedEx package at a Walgreens. You don't have to go to FedEx to do this, but you drop it off at a FedEx approved location, and that is never your post office. Let me know if you have questions. Let me know if I've confused you. I never want to confuse you. I only want to help. I want to help you make your eBay business better, and I want to help you save money.